Hey, how you doing? Here we go again. Sacred indeed are you. You do have a sacred identity. I hope you know that now. And if you listen to my last session, I talked about a real important thing. I had you again ask the question of yourself, how did you get here? I mean, that's the most important question. How did you really get here? Now, we have to settle that question about creation. So, hopefully, you have answered that question for yourself. I don't know what you came up with, but I told you what I came up with. And I told you that I was lost. Again, went through some problems on my own. Actually, after years of accomplishing much in life, became addicted to drugs. Yes. And so I don't have to go through that long story, the turmoil, the disappointment, life-changing event in my life that brought me to the bottom. It was only then that I was able to see God, to find God for myself, to be able to experience God for myself after all of the searching, the roaming, the looking, the going from different faith contexts to the nets, never fully understanding why. And I had to go through all of that to get to the point to see God for myself. I wish I could have just believed without doubting, but I was one of those doubting persons. Again, someone with a hard head that you have to knock on the head in order to say, wake up, don't you see me? So I had to go through all that to see what I needed to see to get to this point. Again, to tell you about my journey so you can help find yourself in your own journey as you seek to truly understand who you are. Because again, as I said, if we truly understand who we are, it means that we have to understand who we belong to. And then only when we understand who we belong to, then we can really pull this thing together in terms of defining ourselves, because who we are is directly related to who God is in our life. And so I had to make that decision. I told you, God, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit. That was what I was brought up on. I left it, but I ended up coming back to the thing I left. God brought me back. He brought me back, and then I started to learn some things, see some things, hear some things, because for so long I had blamed again God for everything that had gone wrong in my life. When the things started to go wrong in my life, I blamed God. Why did you do this, God? Why did this happen, God? If you were a loving God, then surely you could have done something. You could have stopped a lot of things. You're not a loving God. You don't care for me. You don't care for your children. Then I had to really sit down and change my thinking, because I was conforming to everything that the world was saying. And I needed to transform my mind, my thinking, by looking at what God was actually saying in his word. See, I had never had a proper understanding of the word of God. Never truly correct interpretation, understanding the power of God's word in my life. Now it was beginning to work in my life, and God taught me, showed me again just what this all meant. And I came to realize again, you know what? We were created with a mind. We were not created as robots. God created us with a mind. And that means we were able to think on our own. God created us with emotions, which means that we are able to feel, to really experience feelings. Come on. No other creation of God has the ability to think as we do, to feel and have emotions as we do. And then to be able to make decisions. That's the will part of our soul, that we're able to make decisions. But you know what? You can't make the right decisions if your thinking is not right. You can't make the right decisions if your decisions or your thinking is distorted. It's built on lies. What do you think is going on in the world today? People are out here making decisions based upon their faulty thinking. You know, this is false news all over the place. False information, misinformation, disinformation. It's not built on the truth. And I found out again that if we really want to set a standard in our life as we go forward in who we are and knowing ourselves, we got to stand on the truth. It's only the truth that will set us free. Everything else puts us into captivity. We're in captivity. And our mind and our emotions and our ability to make sound decisions, we're held captive. So we got to seek the truth, and the truth is where to be found. It's in the Word of God. Because everybody has some understanding of what the truth ought to be from a worldly standpoint. But you know, I told you in my first session is that, but this is a spiritual relationship. And so spiritually, when you're taught, you're going to a higher level of truth. And when you get the higher level of truth from a spiritual standpoint, it helps you understand everything in the natural in this world. And then we start to see the lies for what they are. We can understand a lie is a lie. But if you're not operating from the spirit, you know, the lie can seem like the truth, and the truth can seem like a lie. And so I had to come to that understanding in my life. You know what? God created human beings, humanity, higher than any other form of creation. And so I got a mind to think. I got emotions I can feel. And I have the ability to make decisions. So, you know, God wasn't responsible for anything in my life. I was responsible. God didn't tell me to walk down that crooked road, that wrong road, to make all those wrong decisions. Here I was expecting God to make decisions for me, to feel for me, you know, to think for me. And when I ended up thinking the wrong way, all these toxic emotions of anger or whatever, and making the wrong decisions, I blame God for it. How can I blame God? I wasn't a robot. He didn't create a robot. He created a human being. I was responsible for my own thinking. I had to come to terms with that. You are responsible for your own thinking. You have to come to terms with that. The first step is that we cannot blame anybody else for our wrongdoing. We can't blame anybody else for our decisions. We can't blame anybody else for how we feel. Please get off of that high horse of saying again, you make me feel, you make me feel. Nobody makes you feel anything. Those are your feelings. You're in control of your feelings. You have the power over your feelings. Nobody controls my feelings. Now, if I get upset about what somebody's saying, I need to deal with me. I need to ask myself, why am I feeling that way? Not blame the person. Oh, they did this. Oh, they said this. Oh, they made me feel this. No. See, we got to turn this thing around. We can only turn it around if we know who we are and whose we are. And we find some sense of where the truth is. And the truth will lead us there through a relationship, again, with the higher source of creation that created us. Look, I can't find everything I need to find out the truth in other human beings, because guess what? They're just like me. We're all on the same level, trying to find ourselves. You know, some know themselves a little bit better than others, and others don't know themselves, and others are completely fallen. So what I want to get the blind to kind of show me the way when they're blind themselves. We all will fall in the ditch. So I have to go to the higher source that can tell me and answer for me what I need to know. And then I try to find likewise people who know who they are and know who the higher source is in their life. And hopefully they can guide me. But again, it all gets back to people, places, and things again. We make the choices who we have in our life. We make the choices of the people in our life. We make the choices of the things we involve ourselves with in our life. We make the choices of the places we go in our life. So at the end of the day, we can't blame anybody for anything that we've done, any decision that we made, anything that we feel. It's on us. As a part of this creation, it means that we got to look at what God really created here. He created a human being, myself and you, with free will to think, to feel, and to make decisions, to make your own way in terms of your life is a journey. And you make your way and you navigate your course, but you got to have some guidelines. You got to know who to follow. See, we're out here following too many people who are leading us in the wrong direction. You got to follow the source that created you, who will lead you in the right direction. And that's why, again, we have to be very clear again on setting this foundation if we want to get on the right course and understand what's going on in our life, understand what's going on in this world out here. Or if you understood it, you would understand it. And nothing will surprise you in it. You understand it, just like I said in the last session. We're fighting a battle that's always been here. It's spiritual warfare. And it plays itself out in this earthly realm. And it's from powers that are beyond ourselves, but those powers above us, also in the spiritual realm, that are not for us and that are evil, again, are using other people who don't know who they are to play this out with. And if you don't know who you are, you can be played with. You can be manipulated. You can be on the side of the wrong. You can be with the enemy and not even know you with the enemy. So, what did God create me to be? And I had to grapple with that, and I realized that, well, you know what? If I was created, I went to the source, I started to read, and what I found out in that in terms of creation again is that, you know what? When he created me, he said that I was a blessing. He said that you were a blessing, a blessing. I had to contend with that, and you have to contend with that. If we are a blessing then, and we were created to be a blessing, then why do we feel that we're walking in curses? Or why is everything seemingly wrong in our life and never go right? And it seems like, and we tell ourselves, is my life cursed? Were all these things coming upon me? Well, it gets back to, again, what we have chosen to do with our own free will. Again, if I'm walking in anything, it's because of some choices that I've made in my life. And if I didn't make those choices, then I said this is a generational kind of thing, you know, it goes kind of backwards to some degree. If the people behind me, my parents didn't make the right choices either, then, you know, this thing is genetic to some degree. It's just like anything else from a physical, medical standpoint. These things are passed down. These things can be passed down. But if we understand kind of what our family went through, we can avoid some of the things that they have gone through by understanding who we are and whose we are and how to fight the enemy off our back. Just because, again, your father may have been an alcoholic don't mean you have to be an alcoholic. When you have that kind of information, then you make some decisions up in your head in terms of what I need to do to make sure that I don't fall into that curse. Because I can't repeat it. All I got to do is think some things about myself, you know, start thinking I can do some things, start hanging with the wrong people. My emotions can get all raw and all out of place and what have you, and I can make some wrong decisions. And that's all it takes is a process, starting with the thoughts, starting with the feelings, and then there it goes, you making a decision. So we just got to think differently and see some things differently and have some understanding about things. And then we got to deal with our emotions to make sure we got control of our emotions. Otherwise, our emotions will control us. And then we get that and put those together, we can make the right decision. So just because somebody in your family had that problem don't mean you have to have that problem. Just because heart disease runs in your family don't mean you have to have heart disease. If you know it ran in your family and you know the things that you have to do to make sure, again, you don't end up having the same problem. There's some decisions you have to make about your own health, about the things you need to do or things you should not be doing in order to make sure, since you have the predisposition to those kinds of things, then how can I make sure I don't walk into that curse? See, we got to, as you know, God says again, and as the word says, which gives us the knowledge that we need to have, which can give us some understanding, which can give us some wisdom, again, is that my people perish because of the lack of knowledge. If you don't know a thing, then what can you do? You operate out of ignorance, which means you ignore the truth. You ignore the truth. The truth is out there, but you ignore it. That's ignorance. And even when somebody wants to try to tell you the truth, you still ignore it. Again, out of pride, I know it all. You don't got to tell me anything. Disobedience. here we go. So we're supposed to be a blessing. So I found out I was a blessing. So once I started making the right kind of decisions in my life, people, places, and things, and putting my emotions in check and making the right decisions. Look, I'm not walking in no curses. I'm not walking in no curses, but I'm trying to overcome some curses that may still be in my family that were passed on. And that's just what we're dealing with, that we may have picked up on the curses because we made some of the wrong choices ourselves. And so here we are holding on to that mess, trying to deal with it, not pass it on to the next generation by educating them, making them aware, and hoping they understand. And if they choose to go another way, they may end up doing the same thing. But the whole point is the answer is there. And so we are a blessing. So I found out I am a blessing. And ever since, I came to truly understand that everything has been a blessing in my life. The curses came from my past thinking, my past decisions, my past toxic and out of control emotions that, again, was giving me a feeling that, again, I was making somebody else responsible for. And so again, when you realize this, I realized I was a blessing. So I am a blessing. You are a blessing. And then he created us in his image. I found that out too. So if he created us in his image, then what is the image? Well, again, when I was upset, when I was angry, when I was mad, when I was blaming God, I saw the image of a bad God, a mean God, an evil God, a negative God, a God that was not loving, not kind. And then when I came to see God for who he really was, because I started to look at myself, and then myself and looking at self and understanding God and being with the spiritual connection, because I had to see this thing spiritually, because naturally you can't see it. And you got to deal with the creator, the higher source, to begin to see some things, because the world will only tell you what the world has to tell you. And the world is full of lies. The world will tell you you're not worth anything. That's why we out here running around now with all these problems going on in society, because a certain group of people feel that they've been told all their life that they're not worth anything. They've been treated all their life that they're not worth anything. But they must understand, first of all, before anybody can move forward, we have to, all of us have to know who we are, whose we are, and stand on that foundation. I am somebody. God did create me as somebody. And yes, we have to make the world understand that, I will not, because this is who I am. And when we know ourselves and know God, God takes care of us, God protects us, God helps us along the way and shows us the way and exposes everything right before us. So I'm a blessing. You are a blessing. I'm in his image, which means now I understand that I'm good. And I try to be good. I'm kind, and I try to be kind. I am a compassionate person, and I try to be compassionate. I am caring, and I try to be caring. I am loving, and I try to be loving. I am forgiving. It's a process we all have to work on, but I try to be forgiven because God forgave me. Oh, for all the mess I've done, how can I not forgive others? I have to understand all this. And so I found myself, walking in this image of God, because I realized that is who I am. Once I came to know myself and know who God was, I found myself. And in finding myself, all these things that were always a part of who I was deep down inside came out and showed itself. And if it doesn't come out, and when it didn't come out in the times it may not have come out, it can be based upon a whole lot of things. It can be based upon our life experiences and what we've gone through, or things that have been said to us, over us, the people we have interacted with, and what was done to us, all of those things. And especially if we did not know God, or we believed everything that was said over us, everything that was done to us, everything that we experienced, if they were all negative, all reinforcing messages to some degree from birth up until a certain time in your life, and you can't even believe all that stuff. But once you really come to know who you are and who God is and get in touch with that, you realize this stuff started a long time ago. It just didn't start overnight. The answer was always there. God, your creator, just waiting on you to come forth. He's ready to give it to you if you're ready to receive it. And so I'm a blessing, you're a blessing. Made in his image. You're made in your creator's image. Again, created to be fruitful. Again, we wonder the things we do, the life we live. Why is there no fruit on the tree? Where is all the fruit? There's no fruit. See, we ought to be bountiful in blessings. Our life ought to be fruitful. You know, we ought not be in poverty. And I mean poverty. We ought not be in poverty because God blesses us, again, that we can be a blessing to others. And so God does not want us in want. You know, he takes care of our needs. And so sometimes there are many other things that keep us in poverty. And that goes back to some of the things we're talking about today in terms of sin. You know, oh yeah, let's just understand it. Systemic racism, you know, can keep people, societies in desperate poverty. Yes, yes, yes. Because God has enough resources on the face of the earth to make sure that every human being is well taken care of. And then there are a lot of people, who don't know how to operate in their prosperity because they don't know God. They don't know God, and so they don't know the truth. And when you don't know the truth, again, you're operating out of ignorance. But there are a lot of reasons people are living in desperate poverty, and we still find ourselves poor in terms of finances and material possessions. But the main poverty we find ourselves in is that we are spiritually poor. And see, if you're spiritually poor, we ain't gonna never get this thing right in the world. See, if people are spiritually poor, then that's why we're gonna continue to have all this sin, all this wrongdoing all over the world. Because people are not connected to the power source, which is God. And see, we're trying to change things through legislation, and laws and regulations. You can't legislate, I hope I get that right, morality. You can't make a person do right. You can put some laws there, to kind of confine them, put some boundaries around them, but still inside of them that they still might want to do wrong. And if they find a way to do wrong, they will. To see, in this world, what we got to be able to do, our heart must change. See, the problems that are going on in the world is a heart condition. And we got to change the condition of one's heart. And see, this is not going to take nothing naturally. We can't do it. We're trying to do it on the world's way of doing it. Let's sit down and talk this thing out. Let's put this law together. Everything works for a little period of time. It's like putting a Band-Aid on something. It's going to erupt again. Over and over and over and over again. We see the same thing happening over and over and over and over again because we're putting band-aids on the problem. And the problem is a heart thing. The heart must change. And only the Creator can do that. There's nothing in the world that can change the heart. The spiritual heart must change. People are spiritually dead, and their heart is dead. And they have no life in them. That's why they're the walking dead. I could go into a whole lot about that. But anyway, we're supposed to be fruitful. I'm supposed to have plenty. And I'm supposed to have plenty that I can share with others and give to others. Nobody should be begging. And nobody should be in desperate poverty, that they're starving in starvation. There shouldn't be societies, again, where the whole country is poor. Yes, and I said it again, and there are people, again, with billions and billions and billions of dollars that are hoarding money. And God doesn't like that either. What you hoarding your money for? If you're a Christian, then if you're not sharing what God has given to you to help make the world a better place, to give based on what God has given to you, then, you need to check yourself. So I'm fruitful, created to multiply. Now, yeah, we understand in order for creation to build a civilization that we have to procreate. And of course, God created female, male, and we're able to procreate in order to have other children, in order to have a civilization. We understand that. But then multiplication goes even further than procreation. It means that whatever we have increases. It increases. God brings the increase. See, we have to, in the world, go to the stock markets and invest money in order to get an increase. And of course, we know we can lose when the stock markets go down, just like we're dealing with now with the economic situation. But the whole point is that with God, see, God brings the increase spiritually. When we give of ourselves, the little that we have, God comes back and always provides an increase. And we look around and tell ourselves, what in the world did this come from? I mean, I don't remember having this. I mean, other people give you things, just blessings just start to come in from all over the place, And so we multiply in our blessings when we are connected to the Spirit. God has increased and we get increased too. And then, God gave us power and authority over our lives and over the world, the universe. And that's why you see man here again in charge and control over the world. But, many times we look around and we see that man has made a mess of the world, and man is making a mess of the world. God gave man authority over the world, but he wanted man to be a good steward over the world. And man, in many times, has not been a good steward. I mean, just look at what's going on in the world. I don't have time to name all the problems. You see all the problems with the environment, with the whole landscape, whether it's the earth, the air, the sea, the soil, whatever. God gave us authority. And even over human beings, he gives us authority, but he wants us to be faithful stewards with the authority he gives us. And so if we have that kind of authority, and then we have authority over all the animals and all the natural resources and whatever, but it's man who messes all that up. It's man who messes all of that up. Again, getting back to how they think and what they're thinking, what their emotions are tied to this thinking. And then they make these decisions just based out of power and control. It's always about power and control. Wanting power and control, power and control. How much more power and control can I get? And then lastly, above all, when God had finished with creation, with me, I realized he looked at everything that he had created and he said, it is good. And so you can rest assured too that you are good. No matter what may have been spoken over your life in the past or what you may be going through now, you are good because the Creator says you are good. Everything God created is good, but evil gets into humankind and our hearts have been moved toward evil. God understood that when sin came into the world through the first creation of man and female, sin came into the world when they disobeyed. And so ever since we've been walking in sin, and it's up to us to make a different choice whether we want to choose. I told you we have the power to choose today who we want to be, but we got to know who we belong to first, and that's why we had to answer that first of all. So if I belong to God and I'm connected to God and I know who God is and I have a relationship with God, then I'm walking with God. And as I said, I'm walking in goodness. And what I pour out to others will be good. Now, if I disconnect with God, I'm no longer with God, then I'm on my own. I'm walking in an evil source. I'm open up to everything. And remember this too, you can say that you're connected to God, that you can be the best believer in the world, no matter what faith you have. You can say I'm this, and you can go to the temple, or you can go to the church, you can go to the synagogue, you can go wherever you go to practice your faith. But just because you go there and you read from a book, it doesn't make it so. Because we got some of the evil people who are saying, I'm this and I'm that. And you look at them and say, but are you connected? So the point is, what you do is one thing, and who you say you are is another thing. But then you can actually see and hear and understand what a person is by the walk, their walk in life. And everything ought to be connected in some sense, because I can't say one thing and then do another, all this, out of context kind of mess, back and forth. There's something fishy going on with that. God is consistent. God is a consistent God. If he says, I love you, he'll say it, then he loves you. It's almost like a domestic violent person again who says one thing to his wife, I love you. Well, I love you. You're the best thing that's ever been in my life. And then 30 minutes later, he knock you out. I mean, see, to be who you are, you got to be consistent with it. You can't show these trajectories of different personalities and persons and different, verbiage and all that. And, you got folk rolling back and forth, one way to the left, one way to the right, left and right. Be who you say you are and be consistent with it. Because if you're not, you're playing a game, you're manipulated. And God is not one to be manipulated or played with. And so, again, I hope that has helped you today to kind of first get to this next step to kind of know, look, so if I come to grips with a higher source created me, and whoever that is for you, and then who am I in context with who God declares God to be? And I've named some of the things today that God declares for me, who God said he was. And I realized that I'm a created part from God. And so I possess those attributes also. And so I'm walking in the image of God who created me. In order to stay in that image, I've got to stay connected to the power source. If I remove myself from the power source, I can just wander all over the place and become anything. And so I have to stay connected. And that's a whole new different subject right there in terms of how you stay connected. So today, I try to take you a step further in terms of what happened to me, the process I went through, some of the questions I had, and how I came up with the answers as I moved again from not believing to believing, how I moved from not knowing who I was to really coming up with a firm foundation in terms of, oh, this is who I am, and knowing this is who God is. We're going to go a little bit farther, and we're going to look even more so in terms of who we are through the eyes of another human being who lived and understood God, and what I learned from that individual, as well as I continue to answer and tackle the question, first of all, who am I? And I've been building upon that throughout. And that's the other part of the process. You build upon this. You build upon this. It's an ever-growing process, but I'm showing you what I looked at before I came to answer that question. Sacred identity, here it is. You want to get this. And I've already said this before. This will really help you, because a lot of things I'm saying and speaking about, you'll find in here. In terms of the journey as well. And as I also said too, if you want to purchase this book, you can. And as I said before, also it can be found on Amazon.com in hardback or Kindle. You can also email me at sacredidentity9 gmail.com. Tell me what you want, and I'll, we can correspond and answer questions. That way, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And so it has been so good talking with you today. And if you want to continue to take this journey, stay with me. We'll talk about some more important things going along the way. But just remember again that you are a blessing. You are a blessing, and you are not a curse. Take care today.